Hello students, I am Damini and today we are going to take up the second part of agriculture in India where we will deal with types of farming, and we are doing this on behalf of personal tutors. Now when we are speaking about types of farming, we are basically speaking about the various ways the farming is done. What we are considering into it is the size of the land, how big the land is. Size of the land, whether the technology is used or not, whether the farmer uses chemical fertilizers, whether the farmer uses machines, etc. So we are going to look into various of these aspects and describe the various types of agriculture. So we are saying that we are looking into different types of agriculture based upon the size of the farm, chemical fertilizers, machines, whether the labor is available in the area or not, or whether does the farmer depend upon his family members for the labor, what kind of technology does he use, whether the yield is high or not, whether the farmer gets a good amount of yield, whether he produces the food crop for self-consumption or for sale. So these are the various aspects that we'll look into. Now first, when we look into the types of farming, we look into a type of farming known as subsistence agriculture. This is a type of agriculture, when you look at the name subsistence, it is for one's own survival. So we are saying subsistence. The farmer is basically doing it for one's own consumption. Because the farmer is not going to produce for export or for sale in the market, his farm size is small. He is not producing very high amount of food grain. The farmer is having a small farm size and he's using the traditional methods. The methods that he uses, he doesn't really earn much income out of it, but then he's basically producing for consuming himself. So he's not using the modern methods of agriculture because he's not going to earn an income out of it. Then the yield is not very high because he's using the old traditional methods. He may be using the manure that is obtained from the animals, or he may be using the humus as the manure, the dried leaves and the dried twigs that are utilized for as manure. He may not be having many modern machines, so he's using the traditional methods of farming, because of which the yield is not very high. When we say yield, the production per hectare is not very high, and he is not basically producing for sale, and it is whatever is being produced is consumed by the family members. So we are saying to survive, the farmer is doing the agriculture. Where this kind of agriculture will be done? In regions where they are not familiar with technology much. So he is basically doing this farming in regions where the farmer is very traditional. He has not undergone a process of literacy. He may not be much learned. So we are saying that the farm size is small, farming method is traditional, the yield is not very high. Whatever is being produced is consumed by the farmer and his family, and because they are surviving on that piece of land, the work is done, whatever work is done on the field is done by the family members. We'll just look into an example of this type of agriculture. We have shifting agriculture practiced in northeastern India. When we speak about shifting agriculture, we say it is a type of agriculture also known as slash and burn agriculture. This type of agriculture is done basically by the tribal people. Now what they do in this agriculture is they go to a forested land and cut a piece of forest. So we have used the word slash. This forest is cut, we have slashed it. and after it is being cut, it is burned, so that this piece of land is completely free of any kind of trees or any other kind of things over there. So the land is left. Now the farmer does agriculture on this piece of land. He practices it, and then they may be using certain varieties, not very good quality of seeds, but something very basic variety of wheat, buckwheat, or they grow some of the roots like tapioca. These are some of the types of crops that they grow. Very basic type of crops. Buckwheat they'll use. They'll not use any kind of modern fertilizers, or they will not use any kind of instruments here on the field. They just cut it and then burn it and start sowing the seeds. They don't use any kind of machines over here, or any kind of agricultural implements over here. Agriculture and whatever we use, hoe and certain other things, they don't use any such things over here and do the agriculture. We are calling it as shifting agriculture, because once they feel that the land is not sufficiently fertile, the farmer may move to another piece of land, this piece of land. So here again he will do cultivation for next 3 to 4 years, and when he feels that the land is not left fertile, he again moves out from this land to a third piece of land, and then again burn the forest, cut the forest, burn the forest, and do the agriculture here. So he keeps on shifting from one place to another. He began from here, and then after some 6 to 10 to 15 years he comes back over here, and he feels that this land has again regained its fertility, and then he does the agriculture over here. Now this method of agriculture has recently been banned by the government, because they feel that a lot of forests are being cut in the process. They feel that this piece of forest is cut, then second, and then third. So because of this, the forest cutting of the forest, this type of agriculture is banned in the country. It was basically done by the people who live in the northeastern India. That means when we are saying northeastern, we are trying to say this Assam and Mizoram, this particular region. Assam, Mizoram, Arunachal Pradesh, where there are tribal groups of people. They have not mixed up with the people in the mainland much, and they still remain the tribals. Or it was done in this Chota Nagpur Plateau region. Because of the dense forest, the tribal people have not mixed up with the mainland, and they still use this technique of agriculture. So this is called as shifting agriculture, burn and slash agriculture, and it is a type of subsistence agriculture, because whatever they produce here is consumed by the group of people who live here. They don't mix up with any other group. So the question of selling does not arise here. It's a type of primitive subsistence agriculture, where they produce not using the family members themselves, sow the seeds, plow the land, and do the agriculture, and the members themselves consume whatever has been produced. So this is called as type of shifting agriculture. Other than this shifting agriculture, other than this subsistence agriculture, there is in commercial agriculture. Now when we say commercial agriculture, we are saying the purpose of agriculture here is growing for the purpose of sale. Whatever is being produced, a part of it may be kept for the self-consumption, but then the main idea is that they are going to sell the produce. Whatever food grain they produce, or whatever the product they produce, they are going to produce it for the purpose of sale. When you are doing it for the purpose of sale, the farm size is large. It is not a very small farm size. The farm size is large, and then the farmer needs to invest certain amount of money in order to bring about a good produce. Say the farmer may be investing in good quality seeds, the farmer may be investing in chemical fertilizers, the farmer may be investing in certain kind of machineries. So there is certain amount of capital that they have, certain amount of money that they need to spend in order to do this type of agriculture. and they mainly use modern technology because it is meant for the purpose of sale. They see to it that the quality of seed is good, because the yield per hectare, the production should be good. So in comparison to subsistence agriculture, where the consumption is mainly for self-consumption, commercial agriculture is mainly for the purpose of sale. Here we have said the farm size is small, but here the farm size is again large. We have said this is mainly done by the family members, but then this uses modern technology. Certain amount of machineries will be used, and this uses old technology, while this uses the modern. They don't really buy the seeds in subsistence agriculture. They don't buy the seeds, they don't buy the chemicals. They may be having just the basic farming instruments, but here the modern instruments are being used. So this is the difference between commercial farming and the subsistence farming. Now when we look at commercial farming, we have various types: extensive agriculture, mixed agriculture, plantation agriculture. While intensive agriculture can be both commercial as well as it can be on the primitive side. In extensive agriculture, the size of the field is generally small. It's in countries like India, where the farmer doesn't have very large field, so the size of the field is generally small, but the yield per hectare is high. They are basically growing the crops in such a manner that the production is high, and it is generally practiced in thickly populated areas. Now when you look at as compared to extensive is mainly done in American countries or in European countries. What really happened over there was the population pressure was not very high. Here the number of people living per kilometer is very high, but in these types of countries the per kilometer population is less, so we have lesser amount of labor over here, and indirectly then you have to depend upon the machines, but you have a large piece of land which you can buy and do the agriculture over there in this particular extensive farming. Because you are doing it on a large scale, you are doing it for the purpose of sale, you are using the chemical fertilizers so that the yield is good. So this is mainly done in countries where the population pressure is high. It is done in thickly populated areas, and the yield per hectare is high. The farmer uses the chemical fertilizers, he may be using some of the modern techniques, but then the labor may be from his family members and from the surrounding area he may take in labor, but then he generally doesn't have as large farm as in extensive farming. In extensive farming, the size of the farm is very, very large. They have a large piece of land where the farmer utilizes the modern techniques for harvesting and for plowing the land. They may be using the tractors for plowing the land, but then as compared to this, in intensive farming, the size of the field is small. Here the labor is not easily available and the labor is expensive. That means they are dependent upon the machines. The yield may here be not very high because they have enough of land. Their spacing between the crops, between each of the plant of the crop, may be considerably good, so that they get good amount of nutrients from the soil. So yield may not be high. But in intensive, we are using the word intensive, means the crops are not grown very, very far, but they are grown at sufficient distance. I mean, if the farmer feels that this much area is sufficient for the crop to get the nutrients, after that he grows the next plant. It is, if you look at this, the farm in this field, the crops are grown relatively closer as compared to in extensive, where they may be grown quite far off. Okay, so that is how the name comes extensive, and that is how the name comes intensive. In intensive, the crops are grown quite close by to each other. sufficient enough so that they can get the nutrients from the soil. Only that much spacing is left. So that is how we call them as intensive agriculture. Because the crops are grown comparatively closer to the extensive farming, here the yield per hectare is high. Along with that, the farmer is doing efforts to give the chemical fertilizers, give a good quality seeds, give them timely irrigation with irrigation facilities, give them water. So that is why the yield per hectare is high. And then there is labor is cheap. That means the sowing can be done by hand. They need not use the harvesters. They can cut the crops by sickle and with the help of the sickle. So that is the difference between but in extensive, we have an example like plantation agriculture, where the size of the farm is very large. The size of the farm is sufficiently large for sufficient spacing between the plants. Here it's done on a very large scale. It may be done on a sparsely populated region. The region may not be very densely populated. Sparsely, the population pressure may not be very high on the land, and that is why they have to use the machines. That means this is a method of commercial farming where the farmer has to do a lot of capital investment has to be done by the farmer. It's a capital intensive kind of agriculture. He's trying to maintain the fertility of the soil at the same time, so the crops are grown at sufficient distance. Yield may not be very high. They use chemical fertilizers, machines, pesticides, whatever is required. Irrigation facilities are there. Extensive, we had said about green revolution, and it's generally, if we think about extensive, it is done in Punjab, where the farmers have got the facility of irrigation. They have been trained in HYV seeds, good quality seeds. So extensive is one example over here, is in Punjab. Now when we look at plantation agriculture, you are aware of the word plantation means tea, coffee. That means it is not just the crop that is being grown, but it is a sufficiently large tree that grows. And it's not just a small crop which is some 5 to 6 or around 10 centimeters above the ground, maybe around 20 centimeters above the ground, but it's a plant which grows up. A plant which may be growing to a sufficient height has been cut to that height so that the plucking can be done. We call it as plantation agriculture. Now we don't use the word farm, we say large, vast, extensive estates. These are large areas where the laborers themselves live within that area. We call them as estates. So these are vast lands where agriculture is done as well as the labor lives there itself. And a lot of capital investment has to be done by the farmer, whosoever is trying to take up plantation agriculture. We have all these tea, coffee, rubber. These are all plantation agriculture, where the crop is not just of this size but grows to a size of a tree. So to grow this, the farmer has to invest good amount of money so that he has good quality seeds or good quality of stem from which the production can be done. Now this type of farming, this cannot be just cut within 6 months. Once it is grown, it remains on the field for another some number of years, 5 to 6 years, or it may be more than that. So this remains on the field, and they just keep plucking, say from the coffee seeds, or the top 2 leaves of the tea plant, or for rubber, they just make a slit on the stem and they take out the sap from it and make the rubber out of it. So it is capital invest in the farmer knows that he'll get the yield for next few number of years. But then again, you have to remember, when he is investing into this kind of thing, he will not get the yield for first 2-3 till the plant becomes till the tree grows up to a particular size. Till then he will not be getting any production. So the farmer has to have sufficient amount of money with him so that he can wait for that 2 or 3 years till the plant grows, till the crop grows up to be a tree. For the first 2-3 years he is not going to have any yield from that particular field. He has to have a technical know-how, what kind of leaves have to be. He should know that what kind of leaves have to be, how deep has the land to be plowed, how much of fertilizers has to be utilized. He has to use sophisticated machines, what kind of land has to be prepared, how much of irrigation has to be given, in what manner it has to be given. So he has to have sophisticated farm machines. And this type of farming is generally done for only one crop. We call it as monoculture. This type of farming is only done for one crop. Either he'll only grow tea or only coffee, or it may be only rubber. And it is generally for the purpose of export, the good quality tea, or it is generally for the purpose of sale. So they only grow one type of crop with the laborers living there itself, calling the entire farm as estate. And then they are saying that he's investing in the initial few years sufficient so that the plant can grow, and then they are trying to bring about agriculture, bring about the production. Another type which we are again including under commercial is mixed farming. Now in this type of farming, the crop is grown along with the cattle rearing is done. So it is like when the crop is cut, whatever is left out is left for the cattle to as a fodder for the cattle. Okay, so that is left out as fodder for the cattle, while the cow dung that we get from the cattle is utilized on the field as a fertilizers. So it's a mixed type of farming where the farmer is using the advanced technology for plowing the land. He's using good quality seeds, they're using chemical fertilizers, but this type of agriculture, the farmer does not incur any loss, because if there is a failure of the crop, then in that case it will be the animal which will yield him the milk, or the poultry. They get the produce from them. But other than this, he does the agriculture mainly for the purpose that he does not incur any kind of loss. There is crop rotation is a common practice. That means that if they are growing a wheat this year, next year it will be another crop, so that the fertility of the land is maintained. The land does not lose its fertility. Generally done in Western Europe and Canada, this type of farming, and it may be even in certain regions in India that you see this mixed farming where farmer takes up the agriculture as well as rearing of the animal, so that they do not incur any kind of losses there. And then they serve two-way purpose. The cattle that they keep gives them the yield, gives them the cow dung as a fertilizer, whereas the crops that they grow is basically whatever is left out from that is basically the fodder for the fodder for the animal. So we have done with the types of farming, and you need to know what are their characteristics as well as differences between maybe commercial and subsistence, or intensive and extensive type of farming. We'll begin next with rice and wheat as the crops. सब बंद कर दीजिए इसको.